Welcome, everybody, to AI for the Average Joe, Season 4, Episode 6. We are now past the European heat wave. So we're in cooler offices today, which is super exciting. I hope you're comfortable too. Today, we've got the wonderful Andrew Jacobs from Larn Learning. Andrew's a training consultant, a learning consultant who works with some incredible clients. Also runs a fantastic podcast as well, but I'm not going to steal too much thunder at this point. I will come to Andrew for more of an introduction. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very good. Lovely to be here. Delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, and obviously we've worked a little bit together previously, and I've been on your podcast, and I think I'm on your podcast again in a couple of weeks actually, which I've just
I
remembered,
think you
which is
are.
exciting. So, talking all things AI. But the reason I wanted you as a guest, Andrew, was two things really. You were on my hit list for this season. One being I love the way you challenge thinking in the learning community, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of that today around AI. And also, we were just talking off camera briefly there, there's no one else who really champions women in the way that you do in particular things. And it would be great to kind of talk about that with the AI lens today as well, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fab. Okay, so. Recently, I saw a post from you around does learning still exist without AI, which really caught my attention because we've kind of combined learning and AI in a really kind of weird, meshed, unusual way where we don't have an operations manual or a real blueprint of what good looks like. So, when you were kind of thinking about that post, Andrew, what came to mind? Where was your head at that point? 'Cause I've not heard anyone talk about it in this way yet.
So the it was as simple as I was typing the word learning out for something else. I post every day. I
Yeah.
post on my blog every day, and 3 days a week I put them on LinkedIn. And I was typing the word learning out for something. I was doing a piece of work with a client, and LERN, and I just carried on typing learning without the letters AI in it, and so LERNNG. And I thought, okay, so the word learning without AI in it. Oh, okay, that looks interesting. And then that's just what prompted it. And the immediate thought was, we are completely beholden as a function now to the use of AI. Now, that in itself isn't a bad thing because I think we're at a point now where AI has seeped into knowledge work in such a way that we can't pull it apart anymore.
Yeah.
But the learning function can't and doesn't necessarily understand how to operate with AI. So the post was really a prompt to say, how does learning work without AI? To get people thinking about how we work with AI, because I don't think learning and development has understood the impact that it's going to have on the nature of work and the nature of learning
Mm.
and development in the future.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think we are still in content mode. I'm slightly still seeing that, although starting to move away slightly, but not sure what to move into. Whilst the problem statement for me has changed around, well, great, you've got all these people producing more widgets through Copilot or whatever it is, but we've not changed the cadence of everything else that sits
Yeah,
around that as well. So how does that impact learning and education and OD? And
yeah,
there's an opportunity there for us to also say, hey, we've got a load of pipelines been filled up by AI slop or whatever it might be, but we haven't changed managers' availability of work sign off or
yeah.
whatever that might be. So, what's your take on that?
So there was a great article, Helen Bevan, she posted
Hmm.
yesterday on a Sunday. She posted an article yesterday, um, looking at the nature of connections and relationships. We're about to put the connections episode of Women Talking About Learning out this week,
Nice.
um, which is talking about how the nature of connections within the L&D space, and women need to have stronger connections as well. Um, the connections piece within AI, I think, is really interesting because we seem to be treating it as a tech implementation when it is fundamentally more than that. So it drives to the nature of the work that we're producing. The work we will be producing will be different, and we are trying to go, well, it's just a tool to help you do that, and it is to an extent, but fundamentally you have to shift what the expectations are of your employees as a result of it, and we've not done that. We
Yeah.
haven't understood the nature of connection is now different. If you use AI to do certain things, how does connection change, i.e. between roles or between people? And we haven't understood that. We've not looked at the system piece and the process piece and identified where processes are now going to change, which they will fundamentally, because the nature of the technology that now exists. We've not thought about the skills and we've not thought about the culture. So these are five areas which are fundamentally being disrupted by AI, and the learning function is going, we'll just do more stuff, or we'll do quicker stuff, or we'll do better stuff, or we'll do more interesting stuff. Let's make podcasts, automated podcasts, and people can listen to it without actually going, how is this changing every job that everybody can do within the organization?
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
there's a huge, we talk a lot, don't we, Erica, around sort of those human distinctive skills. So the ability to be able to actually look at what it's producing and question it and bring your expertise, your knowledge of relationships, culture, the rest of it into your collaboration with AI. And I think you're right. I think that isn't just sitting in an L&D space. Those skills are hopefully, as organizations start using AI, they're going to become broader across the whole business. And then people are going to be equipped with those skills and start using AI with those skills. And where does that leave L&D? Because now we're thinking critically about what we're asking AI for. We're collaborating with it. We're learning from it. We're asking it for sources, all that stuff. So L&D need to understand where their space sits within that now and what that looks like.
Fundamentally, and the critical thinking piece is so important that I call heavy thinking. Critical plus creative thinking is heavy thinking,
Oh, nice. I
and
like that. I'm going to
yeah,
quote
critical.
that.
Feel free. Yeah, heavy thinking. We need to get better at heavy thinking,
Heavy
which is
thinking.
creative thinking plus critical thinking, critical
Yeah.
thought. We're not good at heavy thinking because a lot of the activity, the operational transactional activity that we would do in the L&D space is now being done by AI tools. I need a slide deck, and it will produce a slide deck. I need a diagram or whatever, and so on. And we're not thinking through how that needs to work. So for me, the piece is spend more time understanding fundamentally what the requirement is, stop producing content and think about that connection piece. One of the things I did in a local council many years ago, um, you know, I went there 2009, 2010, austerity came in and fundamentally just took all of our budget
Mhm.
away. So I had to work on a premise that somebody somewhere knew the answer. And my job was to help people cooperate and get together and find the
Nice.
answer. And if you think about the learning function operating in that way, it's a very different kind of approach because you're not relying on the AI as the knowledge engine, you're relying as the organization as the knowledge engine. And actually, you then use AI as the tool to support that. And it's a different approach
Yeah.
to how the organization functions, but more importantly, different in how the learning function needs to operate within the new environment, the new context.
Yeah, totally agree. And to kind of dial that up even more, I personally experienced with clients and my own thinking a real shift into agentic over the last months,
Yeah.
which we know has got greater opportunity but greater risk. And I cringe when I hear clients and organizations, no matter what sector, leaders, HR, L&D kind of go, oh yeah, we're rolling out Claude Co-work or ChatGPT work or oh, Co-work's into Copilot now. And I kind of go, well, stop. That's way past just prompting skills and analyzing the output. You've now put an octopus with all its tentacles into all of your data, all of your SharePoints, all of your whatever your environment. Are you clear what it's pointing towards? Are you clear the connector that's gone into that data? And so for me, that heavy thinking that you talk about is even more fundamental right now because we need to kind of do the whole 90% sharpen the sword, 10% use the sword, rather than
Yeah.
90% use the sword, 10% sharpen the sword. And I'm trying not to be cynical. I'm trying to be skeptical, which I know is a good part of critical thinking around. some of the breaches that we're going to see when we
Yeah,
roll out this intelligence, this octopus into all of our systems, but we haven't done the thinking that preempts the stop, where's the human in the loop? Have we done the data cleanse? What do people need access to? Because if I'm in an organization, I don't want everybody knowing my mental health record, for example, or my EAP access or whatever it might be.
yeah.
So I'm kind of in
The
space with that right now.
the really interesting. I was talking to Marcus Bernhardt
Yes, love
about
Marcus. Yeah.
agentic. Yeah, a lot of time and a lot of respect for Marcus, and he made an argument quite clearly, which is that unless you're giving your AI tools agency, they're not agentic. Which I
Oh,
think is
interesting.
which is a brilliant way of framing it. Is if you're not giving them the agency to make decisions for you, they're not agentic AI, which I think is a really interesting piece of work. And what you're then doing is, all right, so what you've got is agent light. What you're doing is you're giving them the access, but you're not giving them the power to make
Yeah.
those decisions, which is fine. But actually, danger is you've got the worst of both worlds. Then you've got access to the data, as you pulled out, but you've not developed that thinking to then understand how to use it properly.
Hmm.
I've got loads of little badges printed up. Remind me next time we meet, I'll hand one over to you, which is you can't automate nuance. And that I think is the
I love
piece
that.
which is really interesting. The nuance of
Oh, we seem to have lost Andrew for a second there. Is he
my
coming back?
power, my power went off just for 1 second.
Oh,
Sorry.
no worries. We got you back. We got you back.
The joys, eh?
Oh, the joys. My computer's gone off and the power's gone off. And give me one
Oh
second. Let me just
no.
You can have
unlock.
all of the artificial intelligence in the world, but if,
Yeah.
as Hayley's
If you,
found out
oh my
recently with the
God,
session
I've
as
been having
well.
power cuts. They're doing building work behind us. I'm having power cuts regularly at the moment.
Oh,
I can empathize.
It's
apologies. Let me
Maslow's
put.
hierarchy, isn't it? No electricity, no nothing.
Exactly
Exactly.
that. Yeah. There we go. We've got you back,
We got you
Andrew.
back. Thanks for coming
Excellent.
back.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. We've got there seems to be a power issue like where we are, and I've got a really good kill switch, which is excellent. But what it does is when there's anything that's too close to power, boom, then the
Don't
kill
like
switch
it.
comes in and yeah, it stops the laptop and whatever getting damaged. But there we go.
Got you.
Um, yeah, you can't automate nuance,
Yeah.
and that nuance and understanding how to use the tool to make the decision I've always said that um, the tail wags the dog in learning and development. The technology
Mm,
tells the profession what's important, and
mm,
we're in a space now where AI, not necessarily the vendors, but AI is telling the profession what is important, and we're
mm.
not stepping back and making those conscious decisions and
Hmm.
conversations
Yeah.
about how to use the tool in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
thinking partner
absolutely.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and just even, people just have totally baffled when we introduce the concept of asking the AI what else it needs from you, for example. So you've put in a prompt, and you've tried to think of all the nuance that you possibly can. Well, you're never going to think of everything because that's years of
Yeah,
experience and relationships and all that stuff.
yeah,
And people are baffled when I say, well, ask the tool what else it needs. Oh,
yeah,
okay. And then I get a load of questions that actually are really helpful because now I'm having to think at a different level. So that's helpful for me. The business is helpful for the output. And it's just crazy and that's that mindset piece. I don't think it'll
Mm,
take much for people to start that light bulb to start
yeah,
going on and realizing how you can collaborate
yeah,
more effectively. But I think we are racing on and talking about all these ways it can speed us up and make us quicker and do more without going back to that fundamental. Have you thought about the fact that actually all these questions you've got, you're probably going off to Google to ask a load of questions that you can come back in and use the tool for? It's that real sort of mindset shift into what are you using AI for? What's the end in mind? Which
mm,
again is a skill in itself. All this way of thinking
yeah.
is a skill in itself.
mm.
I
Yeah.
I did a piece of work with a hospital recently, a hospital trust, and we're talking about AI tools and so on. And the thing I said to them is as I say to every organisation I work with, is one of the things that you need to do is to actually go to Copilot because it generally is, and just say based purely on the prompts that I've asked you, tell me who I am.
Mm, mm,
And it's a really neat way just to get okay. So what are the limits that it's working on?
Mm,
mm,
In terms of what I prompted previously.
mm.
And
Mm,
then the second prompt is, okay, so I am actually, so identify where it's right, where it's wrong, and state exactly where you are. And then ask it, how should I be prompting you in order to get better responses?
mm,
And it's a
mm,
really simple little way of just refining and pausing and restarting your relationship with the AI tools. It's not a particularly complicated thing to do,
mm,
but it just
mm,
changes exactly as you just said, Hayley, that nature of what I'm asking and using the tool to help you get better
Mm.
responses out the back end.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it gives people that light bulb moment around how it's different to Google as well, from people using, there's a Google replacement sometimes, right? Just for
Yeah.
searching information or for rewriting emails, for example. But we start to get a little bit more meta then in regards to how can AI teach me AI in a really great way, for
Yeah.
example. But
Yeah.
it's back down to that critical and creative thinking. We're just limited by our own imagination with this stuff. I think so, but within safety and guardrails and governance and the way that we should be using this technology right now, so we're not putting anything at risk.
Mm.
Um,
So I do that with Claude. So I've got
mm,
a set up with Claude, particular projects built within Claude.
mhm.
I see an interesting public sector tender. I paste it into Claude. Claude has got some very strict rules, very clear instructions, and access to particular folders
Yeah,
only. I paste the front page of the tender in, and it has particular instructions to review it,
yeah,
identify the likelihood of a go no go, should I be going bidding for it or not bidding
nice.
for it, and I can put in 8, 10, 12 of those in an hour, where it would have taken me 2 or 3 days, and understanding how to use the tool to speed up particular things. But I still have the decision. He hasn't got agency to
Hmm.
start completing it.
Mhm.
I still make a decision. Yes,
Mm,
I'll bid, or no, I won't bid. Um, and it's the nature of the relationship you can use the tools with. And that's
mm,
exactly as you say, it's the shifting what we use them for and how the power and the control that we have over how to use them.
mm,
Mm.
mm. So all of that said, and we're clearly, the three of us are fast followers, we could argue with this stuff.
Hmm.
We've also got a big problem, and no matter, I don't know if you're still reading the same stuff, I'm still reading the same kind of white papers and research around gender inequality when it comes to AI. It doesn't really seem to have moved on that much in the last kind of 12 to 18 months. It's still that 21 to 26% gap between women using AI and men using AI. What's your kind of thinking on that, Andrew? What have you seen? What have you experienced? Because you work with women a lot. You're a fantastic ally. I know you don't like that word, but for want of a better word, and you are very clear in regards to, if there's not a 50% minimum kind of women on a panel or a conference, you won't engage. And I love you for that so much. And I go out and do my warrior bit on LinkedIn quite a lot as well with it. But this doesn't seem to be changing from an AI perspective. We could do all the round tables in the world, and I do a lot of thought leadership on this space. But what needs to change and from who when it comes to use of AI?
That's a really good question. So I would challenge the stats in terms of
Okay.
26%
Mm,
because women are using AI as much as men. It's just they're
mm,
using it as part of their Google search, as
hmm.
part of their iPhone search. It is coming up in their search. What they're not doing is the second level prompting. So there's an
Sure.
issue there
The
over.
deliberate intentional use in their role type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Exactly. And this is where we just need to be careful. Like my mum, for example, my mum won't go on the internet. My mum doesn't use the internet. Okay. She does, however, use Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. Okay. But she won't go on the internet. So we
Yeah.
just need to be careful in terms of classification, what we're
Yeah,
talking
good
about
point.
here.
Yeah,
So I think we just need to be really clear about what the gaps are. Now, if the gap is large language model use, well, then fine. Let's address it as that and be
yeah,
absolutely clear about what we're addressing.
yeah,
So, first of all, understand the split between male and female representation in the knowledge worker space. That's the
yeah,
first thing.
yeah.
So, in terms of knowledge work, as opposed to skill work, somebody, care worker is a skilled worker. Someone behind a desk tends to be a knowledge worker. So is there an equal split of men and women in knowledge working spaces? That's the first thing. Is there
Hmm.
an equal split of men and women in junior roles in knowledge
Hmm.
work? Because junior roles will be impacted and affected more by the use of automated tools. So we need to
Hmm.
have some more clarity on how we're engaging people, which
Mm.
groups of people we need to be engaging. Then I think it comes down to the really interesting piece reported in Forbes where Microsoft was saying that it's not about top down, it's about peer to peer. Microsoft found that people use the tools more when they saw their colleagues using it.
Yep.
So massive credit to you for going out and shouting about it, but people won't listen to you. What they need to do is to have a colleague use it, and
Yeah.
then their colleagues show them and talk through them how to
Mhm.
use it, which is
Yeah.
why the allyship thing is really important.
Yeah.
But their peers using it and telling others. So how do we encourage more women? The women who are listening to this
Yeah.
go and talk to another woman in the office about how to use the tool.
Yeah.
That's the way that you will build it, because men do it, but in a different way. Men set each other up as competition. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
doing this on an LLM and boom boom boom. Well, if he's done that, I'd better do that, and it becomes a competitive thing.
Mm.
um Whereas women tend, it's a sweeping generalization, to be more collegiate, and so they support each other to use the tools more. That's where I would suggest. Women are great at asking for help, so ask the men who are using it how to use it.
Yeah.
Come and ask men like me how to use it,
Yeah.
because more than happy to you know talk around how to use some of these things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think your clarification on segment that we're talking about is absolutely bang on there. Um, I see it a lot around kind of AI shining a light on existing inequality, inequity anyway. So definitely that piece around representation of jobs and sector down. We saw that in the Anthropic research that came out in March, big time around, you know, educated female workers are more at risk for potential redundancy due to AI. There's a big piece as well around, you're right around men with the data showing that there's going to be more intentional reward seeking behavior through using AI, right? I'm going to use it and I'm going to, like you said, be competitive or go to my manager and go, hey, look what I've done. Isn't this cool? Compared to women not doing that so much. But there's also the question around imposter syndrome as
Yeah.
well. And the questions around, is it cheating? Is it plagiarism? Can I do this? Can I not do this? What does this mean? How does this affect my relationship and the quality of my work and all that kind of stuff as well? So I think that's the piece that leadership needs to be addressing right now as well, is kind of, I agree, for women, go and speak and ask for help, but this is a man's problem as much as a women's problem, right? And I
Oh,
and I think there's a piece there we need to
oh,
address.
100%. But for the women listening, so men, close your ears here. Women, for the women listening, men are dumb. Men don't know that they have that power, that control, or if they do know, then they're exercising it and they realize that. So there's something around making men aware. Absolutely, I 100% agree. It's not a woman's problem; it's a men's problem. 100%. But men don't know, and men are too dumb.
Mm,
Sweeping generalization again, to realize that some men get it and they recognize that. Other men get it and use it to their advantage, but most men don't have a clue and they
yeah,
don't realize that. So we need to educate the men more, and we're not going to educate the men more without, unfortunately, women doing more in that space. It's not a criticism. It's not, I hate the fact that we have to go down this gendered space. I was at a thing at King's College looking at women in leadership and the use of AI. Really fascinating that if you go to a non-logged in version of Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, paste in an application and just have a look and see how it analyzes the language. And there's definitely gendered language in
mm-hmm,
terms of how it rates a man as to how it rates a woman, particularly
Wow.
important with applicant tracking systems and so on.
mm,
And how are those tools being used, from a gendered perspective? Fascinating article in the Times this morning about a woman who's having real issues with applicant tracking systems, and is it gendered, and are there issues over gender in terms of how the applicant tracking systems are being used. It might be, it might not. The challenge is we have to raise and make people aware of these things and
Yeah.
understand these things. And unfortunately, like I said, men don't realize that. The session I went to, the KCL session, the King's College session, 50 people in the room, and there were 4 men, I think.
Okay.
Mm.
Interesting. Because the topic was
With
women in AI.
Exactly.
with
Interesting.
that is interesting. And I
Mm.
think also we're talking about, it comes back to intention, doesn't it? Because it sounds to me, and
Hmm.
again, this is generalizing, Andrew, a little bit what you've just been saying, but it sounds to me like men are accessing AI to get ahead ultimately, and women haven't necessarily got that same motivator to get ahead because they want to collaborate with other women potentially. So again, it's all, I know this is all generalized stuff, but if that's the themes you're seeing. So does it not come back to intention and what's in it for me? Because being a woman and having a family and everything that that brings, generally a mental load sits with a female, and something that can really
Mm.
support me and the what's in it for me actually in using AI can go right down to like planning meals for the week, sorting out kids' activities, scheduling all that stuff, managing work
Yep.
and life,
Yep. Yep.
speeding up some of the tasks at work so I get more time. So I think it's about what's the intention, why we're using it. And actually, yeah, women might not have that. Some will, but as a cohort, it might feel like that getting ahead and telling my boss and competing with my colleague isn't necessarily the driver. So what is it?
Mm.
And I think there's something there around that awareness piece of identifying and helping women to identify the what's in it for me. And it might not be to get ahead, it might be another reason.
Yeah.
Mm.
It might be to
Mm.
catch up, which is
Mm.
it's interesting. The again, some of the work I do with organisations, the 4 factors that need to be in place for an organisation to move stuff forward. Skill. Am I skilled? Do I know how to? Second one is will. Do I have the motivation to? Now, those are
Mhm.
internal. Those come from the person themselves. There's 2 external ones as well, though. The first one is resource. So, have I got access to the tools? Um, and the right tools in order to be able to help me. And the last one is authority. And authority is interesting because it's split into 2 parts. It's hierarchical authority, control, but it's also influence. And there's a really interesting idea around, so who's influencing women, who's giving women influence, who's giving them the that social authority to be able to talk about stuff. And at the moment, within many organizations, hierarchical authority takes the priority, the control.
Yeah.
Actually, we can work
Mm.
around that and do much more to support women. I think your point about how to use it for other things is really interesting because, I saw a brilliant cartoon the other week which showed a robot painting a picture and somebody doing hoovering, and it just summed up, the how we're using the AI tools. It would be brilliant if these AI tools could build your timetable and support and do some of that stuff. And that's where the agentic piece really does come in. Unfortunately, the labor, the physical doing the stuff falls on women in the most part than men. So consequently, the cognitive load on women is lighter. So is there a use of the tools in the same way? Maybe, maybe not. Men, I can sit here, I'm more equal. I do all the cooking and 1,001 other things. But the cognitive load will be lighter for me. Sorry, will be lighter for my wife than it will be for me, just fundamentally because she's physically doing more things.
Mm. Mm. It's
And that's
amazing.
where the imbalance is.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's amazing how these conversations start with, designing content in learning development, and now we're talking about full-scale societal
But it
change.
all contributes though,
I
doesn't
know.
it? It all
Yeah.
contributes. And then you
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about the learning profession and the fact that it's full of women, and what does that mean then from
And
that?
HR.
We could go, there's
Mm.
just an HR and it just grows arms and legs in terms of what that looks like. And does that impact adoption? Where you've got your IT teams potentially that have more males that are driving one agenda, and then you've got HR and L&D that are bringing this to life,
Mhm.
behaviorally and skills based, that are on a different agenda. It does really shine a light, I think, across the board. This isn't just
Mhm.
one business going through transformation. This is just across the whole workforce,
Mhm.
Yeah.
education, skills, the lot.
Hmm.
It's fascinating, really, and we could probably be here all day, but we will have to, maybe we'll put this one into another podcast, Andrew, in our next
We
season,
say
because
that with every
we'll
guest
get
though
way
now, Hayley.
me and Erica could just sit and have this chat for 2 hours alone, and I don't know that listeners are going to be in on it for that long, but it's fascinating. It's a really interesting conversation.
Oh, it is. And every time, Andrew, I don't know if you have the same experience, but where every time we speak to someone, whether it's on recording a podcast or something else, I have new light bulb moments. I have new connections. To your point, you started off with connection. I have new mental connections. I have new connections with people thinking, God, I haven't thought about it like that before, so I guess that's the beauty of it.
Welcome to my head. It's the kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's the kind of stuff I think about because to me, I find this stuff interesting and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
throwing, curveballs into things. You said that, I do stuff differently and I ask difficult questions.
Mm.
This is why, because if I don't, who else is?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's is important to me because otherwise, how are we going to move stuff on from what we've been doing in the past?
Yeah,
We won't.
100%.
We'll just be repeating all the mistakes we've done with every other tech implementation in the past.
Mm,
And for me,
absolutely.
that's as we start to wrap up, if you're in HR, L&D leadership, there's such an opportunity here for you to, and I keep saying it, to double down on what you're great at, curiosity, consulting, influencing, asking those great questions, Andrew, that you've just talked about. What happens if we do that, though? What happens to the societal norms, the organizational norms, our team norms, if I do produce better work or more work or what does that, let's talk about that and think about that and map that out and scenario it, model it through AI, for example. What's the impacts that
Yeah.
we don't know about yet? It's all of that great curiosity and heavy thinking that
Yeah.
you've talked about.
Mm,
The so I talk about capability a lot, and capability is capacity plus ability. And what we've done in L&D is only ever focus on ability. We've never
Yeah.
worked in terms of capacity. And capacity is the space for people to perform. And the organization, we've never worked as a learning function on the space where people can work differently.
So
Now
true.
is exactly the time for us to go, well, we can train people, but they won't do anything different because, and that to me is the nature of how the learning function can change. This is the development piece. We moved from training to learning, which effectively
Hmm.
was the same thing. We just put a different coat on with a different label. But the development piece is, well, this development of performance. It's not the development of the people skills, it's the performance piece. And if you start aligning yourself and integrating yourself with performance, then you become a different function. And
Mm,
that's where the conversation needs to be, I think, for learning. Too often we are just focused on ability and we give people 110% of all the skills they need to do the job and then they leave because we haven't understood it's the space they're operating in which needs to be different. And
mm,
it's if ever there was a time to understand what boxes and spaces we need to build in organisations, now is it. We've gone
yeah,
through three significant changes in the UK. We went through Brexit, we went through COVID, and now we're going through AI. So three enormous industrial challenges, societal challenges, which have had an enormous impact on the nature of work. And this is in the last 10 years. How reasonably, if you're in a learning function, you can be doing the same thing you were doing 10 years ago that you are now? You're out of date. You
yeah.
have to recognize where we're going to be and the nature of what work will be in the future. And that's about building capacity, not just ability.
Love
mm,
that. Love
brilliant.
that. Love that.
Nice way to
Nice way to,
sum
yeah,
that
I was
up
going to
for
say, nice
sure.
way to finish today's episode. So, Andrew, thank you. I think there's some real big picture stuff there, but some real tangible stuff for people to take away as well, which is great. If anybody wants to reach out, learn more about what you do, I know you're very well known in the sector, but perhaps if someone hasn't, met you before or wants to learn more, what's the best way to contact you?
LinkedIn is usually the easiest way. Andrew Jacobs L&D on LinkedIn, or if they want to go to my company website, larn.com, that's LLARN.com, and you'll find all the ways to connect there.
Great.
The other way is to listen to the podcast, Women Talking About Learning, which is the another easy way to get in touch. And I do recommend listening to it. People say it's my podcast. It's not. I just create the space, again, capacity for people
Hmm.
to perform. And the podcast is just and it has been 200-300 brilliant women guests talking about really interesting stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. I
Thanks,
really
Andrew.
appreciate it. Another great conversation. And like as we've said, Hayley and I are always like, oh, we could do with part two with that one. But I think maybe we will at some point. But thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you to everybody who's watched and listened to today's episode. And we'll see you soon on the next episode of AI for the Average Joe.